When I first started talking about narcissistic personality disorder here on TikTok a year ago, it was within a week of me hearing the term. And one of the things that started to happen was that I would get a lot of questions about my credentials or qualifications to present myself as an expert. And that created a lot of internal conflict. It even led me to make videos acknowledging that I do not have any formal background in psychology. I actually felt guilty. But see, the thing that I did not have a real understanding of was exactly how the last experience of narcissistic abuse in my life transformed the manner in which my mind worked. It was the catalyst for the most profound revelation in the experience of my life, where I learned more about myself and my own inner dynamics on a subconscious level than the previous 43 years of everything I've been through, including a high level of training and development within the methodological processes of Landmark Worldwide, where I was a extremely successful coach within their Introduction Leaders program. Now, this breakthrough that I had, it happened suddenly. I was going through it, okay? You see, what I want you to know about me is that most, if not all, major relationships in my life, from business, family, personal, and romantic, were with narcissists. I was a narcissist magnet because I have very, very high level of creative capacity and ground up thinking that psychology, if it were to have accurately categorized me as a child, would have likely called me autistic. You know, some of the abilities that I had was that when I was in third grade, I was given a remote control car for Christmas. And when I opened it up, it was in pieces. I had to build it, and I built it by myself with no father and had a running remote control car assembled. Probably by the age of 10, I could tell you the bore, stroke, and compression ratio for many domestic V8 engines because of the car that my dad's owned, And so I would read his repair manuals, and I was somebody that loved things like reptiles and amphibians and would read those books that I could read. But in school, I was identified as anomalous. You see, being put into special education stigmatized me. It made me such that I actually thought that I wasn't as smart as everyone else. When the reality was, my creative capacities were something that, because of this experience, became so severely suppressed that I had an aversion to studying, that I had so much fear associated with education because I felt like I didn't belong, I was stupid, and that was something that plagued me in college. You see, I learned how to navigate college in total avoidance of the future, that I avoided guidance counselors, and I could not handle the acknowledgement of professors. It conjured anger and fear. And so while I had this imposter syndrome, I was also somebody who was sort of goodwill hunting by just randomly picking courses out of the catalog. I would even put myself in master's levels or senior level classes as a freshman or sophomore, and then often mesmerize the professors, but for me, I did not understand that. You see, a lot of the things that came so effortlessly to me, like understanding auto mechanics or engineering or psychology or sociology, these subjects just occurred simply through observation. And so certain subjects like human physiology, I took exercise physiology because somebody in one of my other classes said it was the hardest class at Chapman University. I didn't even know what physiology meant at the time. Before I went to Chapman, I lived in such a small world. I thought I could be a football player or maybe an auto mechanic when I grew up because nobody ever took interest in me, not my parents. Neither my mom or dad ever did homework or did sports, and I never really had a missing. You see, I just dealt with reality the way it was, and a very difficult childhood that I did not think was so difficult. By the age of 10 or 11, I was the one talking my dad out of being another mass unaliver. Yeah, I learned about weapons because my dad showed me the 357 and 22 that he planned on using against a laundry list of men that he thought were responsible for ruining our family. His plan was actually to take us all out, and I knew that. And I was the only one who could stop him by understanding. So my understanding of people was always one of forgiveness, that I normalized a malignant narcissist father and mother. And my mother happens to be a genius, somebody who is a summa cum laude psychology student, somebody that got a master's in social work and spent her whole life protecting children. And when I say see the good in people, I can see the good in any narcissist because it is there. The one thing that I know about NPD is that it is actually curable. I know this because I've coached narcissists to full present moment experience using techniques that I developed to conversate with my mother, where if I have something to discuss with her, like a relationship dynamic, I have to illustrate those dynamics in other areas of my life to depersonalize them so that she can be present to the illustration without activating her defensiveness. And so I started using that because I would not discriminate in my coaching. Most people would think calling myself the anti-narc meant that I hated those people, but they fail to realize that narcissists constituted all the people that I've ever loved. All the people that I've ever loved. And all I've really known was betrayal. All I've known was having money stolen. All I've known was being set up. And you see, the challenge of being a child and an adult like me is that we see things so vividly and objectively, but we only have the funnel of our mouth to share our inner world with the rest of the people. And not understanding the hierarchical world of subjective egos, both people pleasers and narcissists are very similar to me, because I share many traits of people pleasing in my conflict avoidance. But you see, I also had the ability to be present. And so that's why I excelled at football, where I could be very violent. And I could be somebody that you could bully and bully and bully. But if you pushed me to the point where my mind realized that I had no option but to fight, I would suddenly become present. Because I grew up with violence. And I grew up riding in a car with my father and crying little brothers to find my mother walking barefoot, drunk, off her meds, somewhere in the city. I was the one talking my dad out of putting those hollow points into 357 and going down, to Orange County's Children Protective Services with that list. I was the one that was watching him train me and my little brothers to go out and execute those homicides. He was training us to execute them. I think that he planned on giving us the weapons because he had us rehearsing how to execute men. So we were forced to practice executing grown-ups, and I was the one charged with protecting my little brothers. I could tell you the moment where they became that way. And so I came from a family of narcissists. I live with my schizophrenic brother and my mom right now. And all I've ever wanted to do is make a difference for people. And in a world of hierarchical thinkers, people like me don't get an opportunity to exist because people can't understand how I know things. People can't understand how could I invent a supercharger when I bought my first ratchet set in 2015, and how could I just build a 2,000 horsepower car? And everything that I've ever done, all the money that I've made people, has been exploitation, has been me trying to just exist. But see, I had to learn that I was exceptional in a certain way, but I also had to learn that I was normal in another way. That even me and all the things I've been through do not see myself as special, but see myself more as a patient zero. Similar to Sam Vadkin being the first person to say, he's a narcissist and, he's a doctor and he contributed a lot to this field of study. I'm somebody that's saying, yes, you can call me a genius, but I'm here to say that you're a genius too. That I know the neurological impairments upon your consciousness. And there's human beings right now that got to benefit at the tail end of my coaching here on TikTok, where I developed the most perfect methodological approach. And only a handful of people got it because it evolved as a function of time. That I kept all my coaching notes, they're in chronological order because they're part of my book. So I could discover or show what I discovered, the neurological basis of suffering. The key to enlightenment in science, to bring it into modern psychology, to cure people, to make new medications that can cure psychopaths and narcissists alike. That I wanted to have my mother know that I could cure my brother Paul. And so I put my mind to that. And that's me.